You already feel it. That drive that used to clear the bunker now dies 20 yards short of it. And somebody told you the fix is the shiny new driver on the shelf. It isn't. Here's the verdict I'm going to prove to you before this is over. The best driver for your game is almost never the most expensive one on the wall. And if you're over 50, the club that gets you the most yards might already be leaning in your garage right now. I know exactly how that sounds because for 11 straight years, I chased every new release and I spent more than I'll admit out loud doing it. But there's a single number buried in the rules of golf, 239 microseconds, that quietly makes this season's $600 driver almost identical to one from 5 years ago. I'll explain that number in plain English, and I'll show you the exact models that win for every swing speed. And this works whether you're shopping for something new or keeping the driver you already trust. Let me take you back to the moment the floor dropped out from under me. It was a Tuesday. Overcast, a little breeze, the kind of morning where the range is empty and honest. I'd just spent $549 on the newest big-name driver, the one every magazine swore was longer than last year. I'd traded in my 3-year-old gamer to help pay for it. And I stood on a launch monitor at my local shop expecting to watch the numbers jump. They didn't jump. They didn't even nudge. My old driver, the one I just handed over, had averaged 141 miles an hour of ball speed. The brand new one, 142, 1 mile an hour. That's not a gain, that's noise. That's the difference between a fresh golf ball and a scuffed one. I stood there feeling like a fool, and the kid running the monitor gave me this little shrug, like he'd seen it 100 times, because he had that 1 mile an hour cost me the trade value of a perfectly good driver plus $549 in cash. And in that moment, I started asking the question that changed how I buy everything in this game. If the new one wasn't faster, why did everyone keep telling me it was? That question is the whole story. So let me show you what I found when I stopped trusting the ads and started reading the actual data. Here's the thing. Nobody selling you a driver wants to explain. Every driver face made today runs into the same legal wall. The governing bodies measure something called characteristic time, how long the ball stays pressed against the face at impact, how much spring you get. The limit is 239 microseconds, with a small testing tolerance that pushes the real ceiling to about 257. Now, here's why that matters to your wallet. Drivers hit that ceiling years ago. We're talking back around 2006 when the spring-like effect rule locked in. Every premium driver since then has been built right up against that same wall. A face can't legally be faster than the wall, so the wall is where they all live. Think about what that means. The driver from 2019 and the driver from this year are both maxed out to the exact same legal limit of ball speed off the center of the face. The engineers can't give you more spring. It's against the rules. So when the ad says faster than ever, they're selling you a car that's already going the speed limit and promising it's somehow faster. I didn't want to believe that. I'd spent too much money to believe it. So I went hunting for independent proof, and I found it in the robot testing. There's a testing group that straps drivers to a swing robot, so every club gets the identical swing, no human variation, no good days or bad days. And when they line up the last 5 or 6 years of premium drivers and hit them with the same robot at the same speed, the total distance spread from the longest to the shortest is often around 4 to 6 yards across half a decade of releases, half a decade of revolutionary, and longest ever. 4 to 6 yards. That's it. And a lot of that gap comes down to the shaft and the loft, not the magic in the head. Let me put a real dollar figure on that. If you upgraded your driver every single year for those 5 years, chasing that promise like I did, you spent somewhere north of $2,500 to gain what a robot says is a couple of yards you can't even feel on the course. That's the betrayal. Not that the drivers are bad. They're genuinely good. It's that they're all good. They've been good for years. And the story that you need, the newest one to keep up, was written to move inventory, not to help your game. But here's where it gets interesting, because if the face speed is capped for everybody, then the real difference between drivers has to come from somewhere else entirely. And that somewhere else is exactly where the senior golfer gets left behind. Let me explain what I mean, because this is the part that actually cost me yards for years without me knowing it. The biggest names in golf design their headline drivers around tour players. Tour players swing over 115 miles an hour. They create their own spin, their own launch, their own ball speed. What they need is a driver that takes spin away and keeps the ball flying low and hot. So the flagship models get built low spin, low launch with heavy, stiff shafts. Now, picture the average golfer over 50. Your swing speed is probably somewhere between 80 and 95 miles an hour, and that's completely normal. At that speed, you don't have too much spin. You have too little. You don't launch it too high. You launch it too low. You need the exact opposite of what the flagship tour driver is built to do. But the tour driver is the one on the poster. It's the one, the pro you watch on Sunday plays. So that's the one you're pulled toward. And it's quietly robbing you. I lived this. For about 4 years, I played a low spin model because it looked fast, and the guy in the shop said it was the player's choice. My launch angle was around 10 degrees, my spin was down around 1700, and my ball was falling out of the sky like a wounded duck, landing short and dead with no roll. I thought I was losing distance to age. I wasn't. I was losing it to the wrong driver. Here's the fix, and it's specific. If your swing speed is under about 95, you want a high launch, high forgiveness head with a lightweight shaft, and you want more loft than your ego wants to admit. Let me name real models, because vague advice is worthless. For the slower swinging senior, the Ping G430 is a monster of forgiveness, the Max version, or better yet, the HL version, which stands for high launch and comes with a lighter shaft built specifically for swings under about 85. Cleveland has quietly made the best kept secret for seniors for years. The Launcher XL and the Halo line are designed from the ground up for slower swings and high, easy launch, and they cost less than the flagships. Callaway's Ai Smoke Max is another one that gets the ball up and holds a straight line. None of those are the driver on the tour poster. And every one of them will likely outcarry the low spin flagship for a swing under 95. I've seen it on the monitor with my own eyes, a properly lofted, lightweight senior driver picking up 8 to 12 yards of carry over a low spin tour head at the same swing speed, same golfer, 8 to 12 yards, not from swinging harder, from matching the driver to the swing instead of to the marketing. So now you know two things the ads won't tell you. The face speed is capped for everybody, and the flagship is built for a swing you probably don't have. But I promised you the club in your garage might already win, and I haven't earned that yet. So let me get there, because this next part is for the golfer who has no intention of spending another dime. I want to talk straight to you if you're sitting there thinking, that's fine, but I'm not buying a new driver, so what's in this for me? This part is built for you. Because the single biggest improvement I ever made to my driving didn't cost me anything, and it works on the driver you own right now. It's the length. Here's something almost nobody checks. Pull your driver out and think about how long it is. The standard driver sold off the rack today measures around 45 3/4 inches, and some run even longer. The manufacturers stretched the length over the years because a longer club, in theory, creates more swing speed, and more speed sells better in a demo bay. But here's the dirty little detail. Do you know how long the drivers are that the best players on the planet actually play? Around 44.5 to 45 inches. The pros play their drivers shorter than the one they sell you off the rack. Read that again. The people who hit it the farthest use less length than the club aimed at weekend golfers. Why? Because length is worthless if you can't find the center of the face. And a longer club is dramatically harder to hit on the center. Every half inch of length you add scatters your contact, and off-center contact is the single greatest thief of distance in this game, worse than any technology gap between models. Here's a number that stopped me cold. A strike just half an inch off the center of the face can cost you around 5 to 7 miles an hour of ball speed and send the ball offline. Half an inch? That's a bigger loss than the entire 5-year robot test gap between every premium driver on the market. You are leaving more distance on the table with a mishit than you'd ever gain from the newest model. So here's what you do this week for free. If your driver has an adjustable hosel, and almost every driver from the last decade does, you already have a tool at home to do part of this. But the simplest fix is even easier. Choke down on the grip about an inch. Just grip down. It effectively shortens the club, tightens your contact, and I promise you, the yard or two you think you'll lose from a shorter swing arc, you'll get back double from hitting the center. Hold that thought for a second, because it's exactly why I put everything I know about this into a set of guides. If you're tired of guessing whether a new club is actually different, the Iron Clarity Complete Set walks you through the same kind of honest breakdown I just gave you on drivers, except for irons, mapping out the 4 iron families so you know exactly where your game lives, and exposing the loft deception so you know your 7 iron probably isn't a 7 iron at all. It also decodes shaft variables before they cost you another round, the same way that 239 microsecond number just cost the driver industry its biggest excuse. Here's something you can check tonight for free, no purchase needed. Grab any iron from your bag, look at the loft stamped on it, and compare it to what that loft actually was 10 or 15 years ago for the same number. You'll see the same quiet stretching I just showed you with drivers. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. Every volume stands on its own, but together they make you unfoolable in any shop or fitting bay, the same way you're about to become unfoolable about driver marketing. Now let's get back to it, because if the new one wasn't faster, the real question is why everyone kept telling you it was. Better yet, take that driver to any club builder and have half an inch trimmed off and the club regripped. It costs about $15 to $25, not $500, $20. And it turns the club you already own into one you can actually find the middle of. I did this to a driver I'd almost thrown away. Cut it from 45 3/4 down to 45 even. My ball speed average went up, not down, because I stopped catching it off the toe. My dispersion tightened by a third. Same head, same shaft, same everything except 1/2 inch and about $20. So before you spend a nickel, shorten what you own and find the center. That alone beats most upgrades. But choking down and trimming length only fixes contact. There's still the question of loft. And loft is where the industry played the quietest trick of all. Therefore, I have to show you what's actually stamped on your driver versus what's really in there. Let me tell you about loft, because this one made me angry once I understood it. You'd think the number on the bottom of the driver, 9 degrees, 10.5, 12, would be the actual loft of the face. It usually isn't. There's a long running practice in this business of building drivers a little stronger than the number stamped on them, because a lower stated loft sounds more powerful, more player. A driver stamped 10.5 might actually measure closer to 11 or 12, or it might measure closer to 9.5. The stamp number is marketing as much as measurement. Why should you care? Because for a slower swing, loft is carry. Loft is your friend. The golfer over 50 who insists on playing 9 degrees, because that's what the pros play is, bleeding distance into the ground. Here's the real relationship, and it's simple. When your swing speed drops, you need more loft to keep the ball in the air long enough to carry. A golfer swinging 85 miles an hour often carries the ball farthest somewhere around 13, 14, even 15 degrees of loft. But go into a shop and ask for a 15-degree driver and watch the looks you get. It sounds like a lot. It isn't. It's the difference between a ball that falls out of the sky at 210 yards and one that carries 225 and still has legs. And here's the free part again, tied right back to what you own. That adjustable hosel on your current driver, the little wrench that came in the box that you probably used once and threw in a drawer. Most adjustable drivers let you add up to 2 degrees of loft. 2 degrees. If you're launching it too low and landing short, take that wrench, turn your driver up to its highest loft setting, and go hit it. It costs nothing. It takes 90 seconds. And for a slower swing, it can add real carry immediately, because you're finally getting the ball into the air where it can fly. Adjusting up also does something sneaky and wonderful. It usually closes the face a touch, which helps the slice most of us fight as we get older. So you fix your launch and your slice with one turn of a wrench you already own. I ignored that wrench for years. I thought loft was for beginners. Turns out loft was for anyone who wanted to actually carry the ball, and my pride was costing me 15 yards of drive. So now you've got the length fixed and the loft fixed on a club you already own, and you've probably already gained more than any purchase would give you. Which brings me to the question that's been sitting underneath this whole confession. If the face is capped and length and loft are free to fix, then what on earth are you actually paying $600 for when you buy new? And is there ever a good reason to, Let me answer that honestly, because I'm not here to tell you never to buy a driver. There is one thing your money buys that's real, and it's forgiveness. How much the club protects you on the shots you don't hit perfectly. Engineers measure it with something called MOI, and this is the one area where the technology genuinely moved. The highest forgiveness drivers today, the ones built around a 10,000 MOI target like the Ping G430 Max, really do hold ball speed and line better on mishits than a driver from 10 or 15 years ago. Notice I said 10 or 15 years, not last year. The jump in forgiveness happened over a long stretch, not from one season to the next. If your driver is from, say, 2020 or later, you already own most of that forgiveness. If your driver is from 2010, an upgrade to a modern high MOI head is one of the few purchases that's genuinely worth it for you. Not for ball speed, but for how much straighter your bad ones fly. So let me give you the honest buying map by handicap and swing speed, since that's the promise in the title. If you're a higher handicap or slower swing player under about 90 miles an hour, your driver is the Ping G430 HL, the Cleveland Launcher XL, or the Callaway Ai Smoke Max, set to high loft with the lightest shaft you can get. Do not buy a low spin flagship. It will hurt you. If you're a mid handicap player with a moderate swing, somewhere around 95 to 105, the TaylorMade G10 Max and the Cobra Dark Speed Max give you huge forgiveness with a little more ball speed potential. That's a comfortable, honest pick. And if you're a low handicap player who genuinely swings over 110 and creates too much spin, now and only now do the low spin heads like the Titleist GT2 and GT3 or the TaylorMade G10. Low spin actually makes sense. That driver on the tour poster was built for this golfer. If that's not you, stop letting it be marketed to you. But whichever tier you're in, understand this. The head is maybe 20% of your result. The fit, the loft, the length, the shaft weight, and finding the center is the other 80, which is exactly why the guy who gets custom fit with a 5-year-old driver outdrives the guy who bought this year's flagship off the rack and never touched a setting. And that's the thread that pulls everything together, because it leads me to the single most valuable thing I learned in 11 years of getting this wrong, the one that made me rethink every driver I'd ever owned. Here's the secret I promised you at the start, and I want to be clear where it comes from, because I didn't dream it up. This came out of independent launch monitor testing and the fitting data that the good club builders live by the numbers the marketing departments would rather stayed quiet. When they take everyday golfers and measure them on a monitor, then simply build the driver to fit the golfer instead of the golfer to the driver, the average distance gain is far larger than any gain between models. We're talking commonly 20 to 30 yards found not from a new head, but from correcting length, loft, and shaft on the club that fits. 20 to 30 yards from a fitting that costs a fraction of a new driver, and often nothing at all if you do the free parts yourself. But here's the deepest layer. The thing almost nobody tells you. The order that matters most isn't ball speed. It's smash factor, how much of your speed actually transfers into the ball at contact. And smash factor is nearly all about hitting the center of the face. The best smash factor a legal driver can produce is around 1.5. Most amateurs are down around 1.4 or lower, purely from off-center hits and a club that's too long to control. Do the math on your own game. Closing the gap from 1.4 to 1.48 in smash factor at your swing speed is worth more yards than every faster face claim of the last decade combined. And you close that gap for free by shortening the club so you find the center, by lofting up so you launch it, and by choking down when in doubt. That's the whole truth. The distance you've been chasing at the cash register was sitting in your setup the entire time. The technology hit its ceiling years ago. The gains got smaller and smaller, so the story got louder and louder to cover the gap. And the golfer who quietly ignored the story, trimmed his driver half an inch, cranked the loft up 2 degrees, and learned to hit the middle of that golfer past the guy spending $600 a year, and did it with a club that was 3 seasons old. I was the guy spending $600 a year for over a decade. Now I'm the guy who trims, lofts, and fits, and I hit it farther at my age than I did chasing flagships at 50. So here's what I want you to feel. Walking away from this, You were never behind because you got old, and you were never behind because you didn't buy the newest thing. You were behind because someone needed you to believe the answer costs money when the real answer was a wrench in a drawer and half an inch of steel. If you're the kind of golfer who'd rather know the truth than keep paying for the hype, you're exactly who I make these for. You saw behind the curtain today, same as I did on that overcast Tuesday, and you can't unsee it now either. So tell me one thing down in the comments. Go grab your driver right now and read the length and the loft off the bottom of it and tell me those two numbers. If it's over 45 and a half inches, or if it's stamped under 10 and a half degrees and you swing under 90, you just found free yards, and I want to hear about it. Drop it below. I read them and I answer. And if you want to keep seeing through the noise instead of paying for it, come along with the rest of us who are done being marketed to. Next time I'm breaking down the shaft, the fitters quietly reach for, first, the $60 aftermarket shaft that outperforms the $200 premium option in nearly every test, and why the big brands hope you never ask about it. There's a free guide waiting for you too, with the exact loft and length settings by swing speed, so you can dial in the driver you already own this weekend. The ball speed was never the secret. The setup was. Now you know it too. That number gave you the verdict. But inside the Honest Fairway Club, I go further, the full list of the best drivers for every swing speed matched to your game. And you can ask me your own question, and I answer you myself, not some machine. You won't be doing this alone. Thousands of senior golfers like you are already in there with me. Just point your phone's camera at the code on your screen. Cancel anytime, one click, no risk. Now that you found the right driver, let's take care of the rest of your bag. Up next, I'll show you the irons that make your shots easier and more consistent no matter your swing. It's starting right here.